Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 82 of The Long End. I've got my little close eyes option ready. I was just waiting with the game open until the close eyes option came on. And now, what I'm going to do is walk around and see if anything changes, if anything special happens when my eyes are closed. Because it gives us this option, so that implies that there's something useful by doing this. And yet, there is no obvious answer as to what this will help. So I'm just going to walk around and see what happens. I sort of left off the last episode. I was talking a bit about how do we possibly judge how our impulses and how relatively strong our impulses are in comparison with other people. How do I know that I have good impulse control and it's not just that my impulses are weaker than other people and therefore I can easily control them? How do I know that people struggling with any sort of addiction, they're not going through something much more difficult than I've ever experienced in my life? There's no way of telling. So there's no way of being arrogant and saying like, "Oh, I'm better than those people. They just don't have good impulse control," or whatever you might think, right? So it's that's where I left off the last episode, and I'm trying to think now, what did I want to move into from that topic? One thing is that I'm sticking with this topic of addiction because it's so interesting to me. With addiction, I think there's some weird talk about addiction of people will say like, oh, like something like video games or the internet is bad for people because they lead to addictions or something. I certainly don't subscribe to that. What I do subscribe to is the idea that anything can be an addiction, because what an addiction is, maybe I'm not fully equipped to give a perfect definition of what an addiction is, but oh damn it, I opened my eyes. I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna cut and wait until my eyes close again. All right, we're back. We have our close eyes option again, so let's just do that. The last thing I was saying was what is an addiction, and there's at least two types of addiction. The first type that I should just get out of the way is like the medical type, where like there are some people where there are some addictions where you literally, if you come on, you're so addicted medically to a substance that getting off of that substance too quickly without doing it properly will literally kill you. So that is one type of addiction where you're literally reliant on it, right? And then there's another type of addiction that's sort of purely mental and purely like an obsessive thing. Let's see, do I have to open my eyes to go through a thing, or can I? Let's just not go through any of those for a second. Just go all the way to the end. Okay. This is probably not going to be fruitful, but I'm going to see if I can go through areas. No, I don't. I'm pretty much can guarantee I'm not going to even bother because it's just going to make me open my eyes if I try and click on these to go in. So yeah, screw that. We're just going to try out some of the other areas of the cave. But this other type of addiction that's purely mental and not like a literal you will die, but just something that people find themselves being drawn back to over and over again. That, like, this is true for medical addictions too, that like if you're like medically reliant on something, you can at the same time also be reliant on it mentally. But these things, they're not that you can be reliant on mentally. they're not so specific to just like, oh, video game addiction or like porn addiction or whatever you can think of. They're not just specific to individual things. As far as I can tell, that is sort of a trap to get into, of just saying like, oh, this thing is bad because people can get addicted to it. I think everything you can be potentially addicted to mentally. And what that really just means is that you found something that fills the hole inside of your heart, and it is something that is able to distract you from the pain of living. And as such, pretty much anything can potentially be the source of an addiction. Or maybe not the source. The source is the hole in your heart, and the the aspect of the addiction that something like video games or internet or something would be is sort of the focal point that you're, or like the patch that you're trying to use to patch up that hole in your heart. I know I've already done it, but since I'm going to try walking into these walls one more time. So that's just something to keep in mind, that I think a lot of people don't, when they think about addiction, they don't really think about it from that perspective. They think of like video games or like something like that as the problem, not so much that the problem is that this person is having a fundamentally difficult time dealing with the the human condition and the horrible, horrific nature of what it means to be a human living in the world. And so if you take away like video games from someone who's addicted to video games, they're just going to find another thing to be addicted to, because you haven't fixed the problem. The problem is that they are having trouble coping with being a human. It reminds me of that episode of Hey Arnold, another beautiful, like incredibly like intense like bit of story about addiction, was the story about Chocolate Boy, who's obsessed with chocolate. And then they learn like the reason he's so obsessed with chocolate is because like partially because of his sad backstory. And they're able to get him to move away from chocolate. And one of the ways that they do that is they get him to eat healthier foods. And they think that they've done a good job getting them off of chocolate, but it's a bittersweet ending, because you realize that he hasn't actually gotten away from an addiction. He's just shifted to a new addiction at the end of the episode, which is really dark for a kids show. Also, I'm just gonna keep trying walking into walls and stuff and see if we get any. If having our eyes closed makes things into like illusory walls, Dark Souls, or not. I know it's a long shot, but this is my idea that I'm going for. I wonder if it's gonna make me open my eyes to climb up here. I hope not. Yeah, I think we gotta open our eyes, but that'll give me more time to think about what I want to say next when I climb. I'll pause it, and not pause it, but I'll just come right back when. No, wait, no. There's gonna be another place I'm gonna have to climb again. Now that I'm thinking about it, I really think this is not good. This is not doing anything. There are too many places to climb. This. I give up. I give up with this idea. I'm gonna just go home. Just gonna go home. I really should have done this eye closing thing on the way down originally, but whatever. Oh well. I want to check out. Maybe go visit the face. Let's see if we can just have this set to the face. Let's go. and just let it be and just make our way down. Let's see, what can we talk about in relation to addiction? Have I said everything I basically want to say? Ugh. I guess one thing to say is with that idea of breaking the idea of addiction down into just something that you use to fill the hole in your heart. There just what is the name of that comedian? There is that one guy who did a bit. I can't remember his name. Uh, he did a bit on gambling, and he talked about how he himself has been very addicted to gambling in the past, and I forget if he said he might actually still be addicted to gambling. But he talked to like a therapist or someone, and the therapist told him like you're using gambling as a way to distract yourself from your mortality and the horrors of living as a human being. And his response was, isn't that what literally everything we do as human beings is a distraction from our mortality, or distraction from like our fears and our anxieties and our horrors of the world. And it kind of you sort of stumped the psychiatrist, if I remember correctly, and maybe even if he didn't stump the psychiatrist, he probably would have told the story as if he did to make himself feel better. But that's something that I've thought about for a long time, ever since probably there's a Calvin and Hobbes strip, almost that exactly, where Calvin says to, I think, Hobbes, like, is literally everything we do just a distraction from the fact that we'll eventually die and nothing matters, which is super intense for I mean, even Calvin and Hobbes, which is known for being really intense and really great for people of all ages, that is whoa. See if I can just show that comic strip quick. I wonder if is that even allowed? Can I show a comic strip? I guess if I'm talking about it, right? If I'm if it's relevant to what I'm talking about, I think that probably falls under fair use. I don't know. Maybe just one panel. I don't know. Calvin and Hobbes sure is great. I should reread all my Calvin and Hobbes books sometime. Yeah. What was I talking about before Calvin and Hobbes? Oh yeah, that thing about yeah. On one hand, like if you watch the last episode, you'd think I have like a very secure grasp on what addiction is, but when you really think about it, by that definition, like almost everything we do as human beings would count as an addiction. So we can't really go by that definition of just something you do to fill the hole in your heart. I guess it's something you do obsessively to fill the hole in your heart at the expense of every other part of your life, and to completely block out those negative feelings associated with being a human being. Not a very not a very tidy definition, if I can say that much. But I guess that's a little bit closer to a good definition. Maybe we'll end this episode when we get to the face and we give the face some disappointments and see what the last thing they have to say is. The wonderful, the wondrous face. I knew I had a lot to talk about with addiction, but I didn't know I was going to talk this much about it. It's I really I eventually want to talk about Attack on Titan and the idea of freedom, and I think freedom and addiction and what we do, what we choose to do to fill our time, are all very interlinked as concepts, and sometimes it's hard to tell what sort of things are we doing. And freeze, another freeze we're getting. What sort of things are we doing, like out of our own free will, to enjoy our lives the best, versus what kind of things are getting closer to being a dangerous addiction that we're following to block out our negative emotions. And again, it's one of those things where it's not just one or the other a lot of the times. It's a spectrum of these things. That it can be closer to one end than the other, or it can be close to the middle. It's hard. It's hard to say. But it looks like we've found our friend the face. Let us talk. And this whole time I've had the music and such off. Let's turn it back on and talk to our friend. Hello, face. How are you? I am well, thank you. How are you? Can you help me with these thoughts? What will happen after 400? What lies beyond this cave? I think that's the only one we need. Yeah. I will grant you my wisdom, but I demand an offering. Give 5 disappointment. Beyond this cave, there is light. Light is beautiful and dangerous. Light is without understanding. Don't trust the childish eyes of the young. They will fear you. Only trust the old and blind, who are not afraid of that which emerges from darkness. Okay, I think that actually is probably fantastic advice, because of our vision that we had, we saw both an old man, an old blind man, and the little kid. So just the face is telling us trust the old man and be wary of the child, because the child is gonna, I guess, tell the rest of the village to burn us at the stake. But the old man will probably be cool, and he'll be our friend. I have some more questions. Ooh, more questions. Let's see. Which one do we want? Can you tell me a secret? What will happen if I leave the cave? Is there a way to manipulate time? Jojo! Tell me the secret of the world. What will happen if I leave the cave? I will grant you my wisdom, but I demand an offering in return. Give 100 coal. Guess we gotta start collecting some more coal. Can you tell me a secret? Give 3 golden coins. Oh, ooh. I guess maybe we have to break into the king's place. Is there a way to manipulate time? Give 7 disappointments. Currently have 6. Okay. We have new goals. We need coins, and obviously we can get coins if we break into the king's vault. And we need coal, and we need disappointments. Did I already say that? Whatever. Disappointments, coins, coal. Okay. New goals. With that, I think that's probably enough for another episode. Probably a good place to stop it. And I think I'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.